Here are three truths about Victoria, Australia's most left-leaning state. 1. In the 2023 Indigenous Voice referendum, 54.15% of Victorians voted no. That is, democratically speaking, Victorians did not support a proposed federal advisory body that would only comprise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Even socially progressive Victoria thought that dividing people up based on perceived ethnicity was a bad idea. 2. Victoria has significantly less percentage of Aboriginal Australians than any other state or territory at less than 1% of the population. According to the 2021 census, 0.94% of Victorians identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. 3. To put it politely, Victoria's economy is in the shite. The Financial Review reported recently, Victoria's debt is among the worst in the world. If you want a more left-leaning view, the ABC reported, Victoria's debt set to hit record levels as axe looms over public service. Treasurer Jaclyn Symes' first state budget reveals net debt will reach $167 billion this year before growing to an eye-watering $194 billion in 3 years' time. Don't worry, by then that's projected to be only $28.9 million of interest repayments every single day. What an efficient use of taxpayer money. It should be noted, according to a recent report by the Herald Sun, Premier's $513,000 payday, Jacinta Allen has cemented her status as the nation's highest paid Premier. While the state drowns in debt, the dear leader continues to profit. The Victorian Premier has now become the second highest paid politician in the country, behind only Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, whose salary sits at around $620,000, which is more than the President of the United States. It is often claimed that higher salaries attract higher calibre politicians, in which case Australia must be governed by some of the most brilliant politicians on the planet. But despite these economic problems and Victorians' lack of support for the Indigenous Voice referendum, the Victorian government still found a way to siphon your taxpayer money into the so-called Yoorrook Justice Commission, widely considered to be Australia's first formal state-based truth-telling process, with the legal powers of a royal commission, which looks into historical and ongoing injustices against First Peoples in Victoria. Notably, the Commission's name, Yoorrook, is named after the Wemba Wemba Wamba Wamba word for truth. Established in May 2021, the Commission has some real power. It has the power to compel people, including the Premier of Victoria, to appear before it, to answer questions truthfully, and to produce documents and other evidence. And that's exactly what they did in 2024, with The Guardian reporting, Victorian Premier confronts bloody stains of colonisation. After now more than 4 years, Australia's first Indigenous-led truth-telling inquiry has handed down its final report. Can you guess what the results were? The ABC reported, this was a genocide. Findings from Indigenous-led truth-telling inquiry. They highlighted that the report has outlined 100 recommendations aimed at redressing these injustices. Can you guess what the recommendations were? I'll give you a clue. They involve money and power, quite literally. With the ABC reporting, Australian First Truth-Telling Inquiry rewrites Victorian history, calls for redress and transfer of power. In the article, they conclude that the government must provide redress as a result of the colonial invasion and occupation of First Peoples territories. That included redress for all consequent damage and loss, including economic and non-economic loss for genocide, crimes against humanity, and denial of freedoms, plus interest, and could also include initiatives like tax relief. They're also calling for Victoria's First Peoples Assembly to be made permanent. Yes, this will be going on and on forever. They also state this could include redress in the form of land grants, tax exemptions for First Peoples on natural resources, or transfers of rights or entitlements on Crown lands, and a crowd favourite, more Aboriginal place names. Here's a photo of the good Premier with Yoorrook Chair Eleanor Burke contemplating all the various ways they can spend your taxpayer money. And just to be clear, they're not ruling that out. With the Herald Sun reporting, Allen refuses to rule out payments for Indigenous Victorians, including tax relief and cash compensation. Even though the state's debt is at record levels, apparently there's still money to give away. Responding to reporters' questions about reparations, Ms. Allen said, "I'm not focused on people who want to divide people. I'm not going to respond to the individual recommendations or the report as a whole through individual questions at a press conference. That would not do justice to the years and years of work and evidence." Just to be clear, no Victorians alive today committed any of these historical wrongs identified by the Commission, but yet it is these very Victorians who are going to have to foot the bill through their hard-earned taxes. It hardly seems fair. Actually, the BBC accurately reported from a British perspective, inquiry finds British committed genocide on Indigenous Australians. British colonists committed genocide against Australia's Indigenous population in Victoria. Okay then, perhaps the British should pay for it then. Why should modern-day Victorians pay for British historical injustices? Of course, not everyone agrees with the Commission's findings, with the Australian reporting. Tell the truth, we're a single sovereign country. It is outlandish, for example, for the report to demand that the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People be embedded into Victorian laws. Our federal parliament has not incorporated UN DRIP into domestic law and could never do so because it is utterly inconsistent with Australian law and our political framework. And more bluntly, Yoorrook Inquiry's truth-telling is an egregious fraud, basically stating that the final report lacks historical rigour, disregards conventional evidentiary standards, and relies on naked assertion rather than objective truth-seeking, concluding that the Commission has presented extreme and poorly founded demands which would ultimately enrich a privileged elite rather than addressing genuine disadvantage. Anyway, those are the findings of the Yoorrook Justice Commission. Your ancestors, or not, depending on your background, are financially responsible for historical injustices that you had nothing to do with. Thanks, Premier Allen.